Bill?
Yo, Bill, you got your mic on?
Hyperbeam, damn it. Hyperbeam on everything.
Bill, we're gonna have to take Omega Ruby away from you.
Oh, what? Oh, it's Wednesday. Welcome, colonels, scientists, and disused Yetis, to the 82nd episode of an Unearthly podcast. Tonight, we are streaming live on Thanksgiving Eve 2014 and featuring The Web of Fear, written by Mervyn Haseman and Henry Lincoln. I am Bill Sylvia, the man in black, and my 3DS is away for the time being. With me are Mad Matt Winchell,
Hello.
Randy Ronson McCulloch,
Always a pleasure.
and Aaron Romeo Moon Burke.
Hello.
And early Happy Turkey Day for all of you in the United States out there. Any of you in Canada, Great Britain, or any place else on the planet, just ignore us and keep going.
I guess we should also mention a slightly late but on time for a weekly podcast. Happy 51st birthday to Doctor Who.
Yes.
Yep.
Always worth
Yeah,
mentioning.
Sunday.
Yep. Speaking of years, that's a terrible segue, but I didn't have a better one. Our news this week starts with a few pieces about Series 9. A bit of a disclaimer on this one. From what I've seen, this is a fairly good source, but not the best ever, and it's the only one that I can find saying "and 10" in the headline. So while we're saying that Peter Capaldi is confirmed for Series 9 and 10, every other source that I'm seeing is only saying Series 9, so we might want to take the 10 with a grain of salt.
Here's the question. Have you heard this from the BBC?
No, but most of this news I don't see from the BBC until after I've seen it everywhere else. So I don't know where from the where from the BBC other people get it, but
Okay.
usually I find this on other sites first. In this case, we're finding on International Business Times, and every other mention that says 9 and 10 is linking back to this article.
Okay.
Yeah, that is interesting because that does sound pretty official, even though it's not directly from BBC.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it's a fairly good site, but not as good as BBC.
Yeah, I'm going to wait till the BBC releases an official statement. However, I was not really overly concerned that he was going to be canned.
Yeah, neither was I.
It was, people made a big stink about this shortly into the filming of Series 8 that, oh, God, he's only signed on for one series.
And that, yeah,
Oh,
I saw that right away as a publicity gimmick anyway, because that's pretty much the standard.
Oh,
The big,
no,
the big,
it
the,
was.
okay, go ahead.
It wasn't really a publicity gimmick. It was people in the U.S. not understanding how the BBC actually handles its
No,
contracts.
I mean the way they were leaking it in bit, like the way they were making it look like it was unique was a gimmick. Like the fact that they announced Peter Capaldi signed on for Series 9 at just the right moment. I think it was like 2 days before Deep Breath aired or whatever. You know,
Well, that itself was a bit of a publicity stunt to pull up publicity for watching Deep Breath and everything. But no,
yeah.
I was talking way back before the series even premiered.
Right. Now, that's what I'm saying. Like,
When the internet was ripe with people screaming, "Oh my God, he's only signed on for one series!"
yeah,
And
but
I would
I
still
Oh
think,
argue
God, it's
that
Christopher
I think,
Eccleston all over again. I'm like, no,
I think
people.
Moffat was doing his best to quietly bolster up that
I
as
think
a big
I think he
thing.
was just sitting back and saying nothing
I think
because
that the news people were trying to milk
He
the
was.
honeys.
I mean, I, I,
it's
I think they wanted people to feel like it was a bigger deal than it was.
Yes.
no. I think he did. They didn't need to. I think people made a big enough deal out of it without them having to do anything. And again, I say it's because people misunderstand how the British do their contracts.
Now
It's I mean here when you sign on for a series like say Arrow or The Flash or something, when you sign on for at least a 3-year contract. because they want to make that for syndication. The network, however, has a cancellation option in the contract if it doesn't air well. But they,
Now, the reason this is supposedly big news is because there is yet to be a confirmation or denial of Jenna Louise Coleman's return.
Mhm.
Looking at Death in Heaven, there's pretty good chances that the Christmas special will be her final episode, but the news media and possibly the BBC as well are milking the buzz
oh,
around the question of
I,
whether or
I'm
not.
I'm I'm sure. I'm actually sure Moffat is milking this one
Hmm.
because he deliberately went into this one with the "Is she going to leave?" And Moffat doesn't like to reveal anything prior to it happening. He likes to play his cards very close to the chest.
Probably including the card of when he's finally going to be let go.
Yeah, because we haven't heard anything about that yet either.
Now,
Hmm
one
And
thing, one
I've been shouting for him to stand down and let someone else since Series 7.
Since Series 6.
Yeah, but we didn't have a podcast back then.
Yeah, but I had a loud enough opinion.
now,
Yeah,
one
you heard quite a bit of it.
our
And,
next our next piece of news is one that Moffat probably did not want to keep close to the chest. There
oh
are
no,
some
considering his the issues people have stated with him being
uh,
a
there,
bit sexist.
there, there,
And
there are there are some grains of salt to this one, which I'll mention at the end. But this is that Catherine Trigana, the second female writer since 2005, has been announced as a writer for a Series 9 episode. This is not counting spin-offs, which have had a bit more of a diverse writing
who was the
population.
first?
It was Helen Raynor, writer of Daleks in Manhattan, which was heavily edited by Russell T Davies anyway, and the
Mm.
Centauran Stratagem two-parter.
Oh,
Well, the Sataram Stratagem two-parter was really good.
yes.
A lot of people don't like that for some reason. I enjoyed it. A
Oh,
lot of
fuck
people
those
seem
people
to
then.
hate
They
it.
don't know joy.
It literally brought the Santarans back on our screen.
Yeah, and
Daleks
it
in Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks wasn't as good.
and it brought
It was so-so.
Martha Jones back on our screen too, which
Yes, it did.
I
Yes, it
enjoyed
did.
at least.
Okay, so
Catherine Trigana has previously written 4 episodes of Torchwood,
Hmm.
as well as DCI Banks, The Fixer, Lewis, and Law and Order UK.
well, I don't know many of those, so I can't tell you anything about her writing.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how it shows out. I'd actually like to know which episodes of Torchwood she wrote, but that'll wait till after the podcast. We have plenty of
Yep.
time to look up this kind of information.
Yes.
Before
So-
we move on from this piece, though, I do want to take a look at the one comment on this article because it does say something worth noticing. The comment is from a user named Namnewt. It says, "Keep in mind that we have seen such announcements before, only to have the writer's episode dropped." There's more to the comment, of course, but that's a good point. Unless we have confirmation that this episode has been filmed, it's still up in the air, even if everyone
Yeah.
intends for it to go through.
That's the case with all of them, and you got to remember, sometimes a writer will take too long to write an episode that they need to get one in the can before it's done, so they will go to
Yeah.
one of their by the book people that will crank out an episode overnight. Generally, these
That's how
episodes
Terry
turn out to
Nation
be
got a
kind of.
Doctor Who career.
Actually, it's how Douglas Adams got a Doctor Who career.
Yeah.
I did not know
Terry,
that he was known
Terry
for
Nation
writing.
had a bit of time. What?
Well, Terry Nation was turned to a few times when somebody else couldn't get their episode in on time, and they needed
Yeah,
someone to
but-
throw together a sci-fi bit.
Yeah, but most of Adams' episodes for Doctor Who were literally written in a weekend.
But I thought he was already the script editor at that point.
Yeah, but that was basically what would
Sometimes.
happen is either the script that came in was total crap or failed to deliver. So he
Right.
basically locked himself in a closet and wrote the episode
Or-
from scratch.
Or the co-star stopped coming back. Well, that was half an
Okay.
episode.
But that's another
All
story.
All right, so I think we can move on now.
We
And-
can't.
The big news, I guess this would be considered the big news for upcoming is the fact that we think the episode title for the Christmas special now, and
Yep.
that is The Last Christmas. BBC has released an official a press note on this. According to the release, in Doctor Who, the Doctor and Clara face their last Christmas, trapped on an Arctic base under attack from terrifying creatures. Who are you going to call? Santa Claus. Boy, they kind of missed one there. They had
Now
to do the
there's
who are.
yeah yeah. Um, Now here's something, and this is probably not going to happen, but I would like to point out that Series 7 reintroduced a species from Mars.
The Ice Warriors.
Hmm.
So now this is probably not going to be Doctor Who's take on Santa Claus conquers the Martians, but wouldn't it be glorious if it was?
Well, it couldn't do any worse.
I definitely think they couldn't do any worse, especially if they happen to have a robot and a polar bear.
Uh, yeah, we'll see. It'd be interesting if that's what happens here. I'm looking at a lot of the guest stars, and that's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I think, doesn't this article have the name for the elves, or was that a different article about the same topic? I'm not seeing it right now. Um, Maybe it was a different. Oh, maybe it was Doctor Who News' article.
By
on
the
it.
way, further on into the article, it mentions Ice Warriors and Cybermen used to be in this area, and it also mentions the idea of watching the teaser for the episode to possibly get more hints.
The teaser is the one that we looked at last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we saw that one last week, so we're not going to deal with that again.
But yeah, I would assume that somebody out there has already digested that thing frame by frame by now and has a very cohesive idea as to if there were any actual secrets in it.
Yep. We're not. This is probably about all we're going to get until about the week prior to the actual airing.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there are on-set leaks like there were for parts of Series 7.
Yeah, but usually they're pretty good with the Christmas specials.
Usually.
The only other thing might be is if they decide to do any webisodes or anything like that. But if you noticed, Series 8 was pretty webisode light. For the first
Yeah.
time, I think in like three, four, or first time at least in a couple of series, there weren't any webisodes at any point during the series. So Moffat may be over that whole thing now.
Or just really didn't have any extra material he wanted to share either way.
Yeah, either way, there wasn't. I
Okay,
don't think we have anything.
the two elves, the one played by the Centauran actor is named Ian, and the other one is named Wolf.
Okay.
This seems to be his first Doctor Who appearance. His name is Nathan McMullen, and he has
Mm-hmm.
no other Doctor Who credits that I'm seeing.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware of, yes.
All right. So they were just chosen because they're elves and people won't recognize the guy outside of his Strax mask.
Yep, for the most part.
Yep. So we'll see. We'll see more of that when it gets closer to the event. From the future, we turn around and we take a look at the past. In specific, the chart placing for Death in Heaven. The finale of Series 8 got 14th most watched program on British television for the week, according to the Barb. So that's a official 28.8% share of the total TV audience. Not surprising, the top for the week was Strictly Come Dancing, which had 10.52 million, and it barely beat out ITV's Downton Abbey, which had 10.44 million viewers.
Yeah, right now, Doctor Who's been having stiff competition towards the end of the season.
It was Strictly Come Dancing that barely beat Downton Abbey. It looks like.
Okay.
Doctor Who is a bit lower.
Yeah, actually, yeah,
Well,
I think Doctor Who's a
it's
bit
not
lower
giving
than
the
Downton Abbey,
actual
but yeah.
number in the article, but I
Yeah,
know.
well, either way, we're still 14th on the list.
Sixth
Not the
highest rated
greatest.
program on BBC television.
Not the greatest for a show that used to rate in the top 10 all the time, but it's still getting a fairly large audience share. It's just
Yeah.
there's a lot larger audience, I guess.
Possibly.
And that clears us up for rating. for
Yep.
ratings.
Yep.
Our
That's
next
all we.
bit,
That should be also, I think, the end of our ratings until we get to the Christmas. I
unless
think
unless
that's going
yeah
to be.
unless they
Y-
announce the plus sevens from there on.
Yeah.
Or any other major updates? Yeah.
Our next bit is a piece called "Cult Conversations," which they recently announced. I believe is going to be the first three DVDs of which have been released, and these are essentially DVDs on interviews with prominent Doctor Who cast members, presumably discussing behind the scenes as well as probably other things as well. I'm not recognizing all of these names, meaning that they are also looking at non-Doctor Who people. It just seems they are
Um.
of the first one.
They're Doctor Who people, but they're Doctor Who bit people.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at the first four names. The first two are well known: Katie Manning and Terry Malloy,
And I think they're
aka
both
Joe
still doing
Grant.
Doctor Who
What?
with Big Finish. I think they're
Uh,
both still doing Doctor Who, but with Big Finish.
yep. AKA Joe Grant and the one of the original Davroses. Not the actually. I think he's the later classic Davros because
He's
the
the
first one
'80s
was Michael Winter.
Davros.
And he
Yeah,
was a damn good Davros.
I'm thinking he's the '80s Davros, the Big Finish Davros, and he was also the guy in the beginning, the origin story that was released after Name of the Doctor, and the trio that started. He was an engineer trapped in the TARDIS, but that's a whole other story.
And then the other
Still need
two
to buy
people
that.
that they have for interviews is Tom Adams and John Carson. Neither of which played major roles in Doctor Who, but played major roles elsewhere on British television and played bit parts on Doctor Who.
So presumably these DVDs are not going to focus only on their Doctor Who work, but are going to be a bit broader
Overall
look at
work,
them.
yeah.
Yeah. For instance, Tom Adams was opposite Steve McQueen in the movie The Great Escape. I mean, that's a fairly huge movie.
Yes.
And he was also in The Avengers, which was another big BBC, and it has nothing to do with the Marvel property.
And I
It's a
see that
spy.
John Carson was involved in some Hammer vampire
Also in
movies.
The Avengers.
And also the Avengers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Taste of Blood, Dracula.
And Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter.
Now that sounds
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah, that sounds like something you want to watch, Matt.
Sounds like something that I should be watching already. I need to look this baby up. I'm going to save that tab. Dr. Kronos Vampire Hunter.
Yep. So, these are what are they, 1 hour interview?
Doesn't
just
really
closed it.
say, I think.
I don't. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think it says how long they last.
They are
It does mention that they're 11 pounds each, or 55 pounds for the whole series.
Oh,
I
it
mean, the whole
mentions
series.
another one that's already out, Valerie Leon, but it doesn't say anything about Valerie Leon. So,
Right. So I'm
apparently
thinking if
not.
this is,
No, probably
is this
not a Doctor Who.
Is this a 5-disc series then, or?
Those might just be they might just be highlighting the Doctor Who people that have been in Doctor Who.
Well,
Yeah,
the reason
maybe.
I
On
ask
the
is because
news.
it's saying 11 each or $55 for the whole series.
Well, I
You
would
see
assume
four
that would
below,
mean
you
there's like
mentioned
at least
another,
6
so that means
discs.
I
there
suspect
can't
there's
be many more than 6.
I suspect there's 6.
Yeah.
I suspect there's 6. The thing is that only 4 of them have any bearing for Doctor Who, which is why Doctor Who News is highlighting them. But
Right.
that would make sense that you're getting 6 for the price of 5, essentially.
Yeah.
And
It would make sense if they're releasing 3 at a time that they would be doing 6.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like you said, 11 pounds each, which comes out to be about $16-17 US, and 54.95 pounds for the whole series, which is like 75. We'll say.
Yeah, they better be at least an hour each to make it worth your
Yeah,
while.
or 2. Yeah.
So, that's that. Moving on.
Moving on. Canadian company
Bell-
Bell Media has revealed that their upcoming subscription on demand video streaming service called Project Latte will give users in Canada access to 108 episodes of Doctor Who.
So I'm going to guess that this is Canada's response to Hulu.
More like the
it's-
response to Netflix, I think.
Netflix isn't television though. Like television, it's
On
well, it's
demand.
more television now than it used to be, but it was always
Yeah,
movie centric.
I'm actually not sure.
Yeah, I would need to know more about how they actually run it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they meet. It sounds like they're mentioning on-demand video streaming. So what this might be is a service for cable companies
Yeah.
to add to their on-demand lineup.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, Funimation, who does a lot of anime, has its own channel, but for most places, it's
This
only
no,
available by
it's
on-demand
not a
stream.
television sir. It will be available via mobile apps, the web, game consoles, and smart TVs. So it sounds like a
It sounds
competitor
like
with
Netflix.
Hulu and
Oh yeah,
Netflix.
that's then it's definitely a Netflix Hulu like thing.
Yeah.
It's not Hulu. It's not either from the fact that it sounds like it's not making new stuff, but neither did Netflix or Hulu when they started.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the reason this is news that we're mentioning is that it's starting off with 108 episodes of Doctor Who, which has been getting a surge in popularity in Canada, as we saw with the series 8 ratings.
Yes, and if that continues
Now,
to
does
trend
this
on
mention if it?
streaming, then they'll probably grow that
Other
number pretty
other
quickly.
shows included in Project Latte include Orphan Black, which is another BBC series which is really popular.
Mm-hmm.
Utopia, which I'm not familiar with, and all 726 episodes of the Star Trek franchise.
Now, see, the fact that it includes all of the Star Trek is throwing me off because I was initially going to guess that these are 108 episodes of New Who, but if they're going back for 50 years of Star Trek, they might be including Classic Who as well.
Yeah.
It might be a mix of each. 108 episodes is a very
That,
specific number,
yeah,
so I'd
that
actually have to
sounds
look to see how
close to
many.
what the New Who run is.
That might, yeah, it just might be all of New Who. I will
Because
remind you that BBC Worldwide uh, does differentiate between Classic Who and New Who.
yes,
And New Who is listed as Doctor Who for such things, and old one is usually called Doctor Who Classic or Classic
usually
Doctor Who.
yes. Also of note is the fact that if you ignore specials, there are if you take 8 12 episode seasons, that would put us at 96 episodes of New Who. Mix in
Uh,
specials, and 108 sounds about right.
yeah, except for the fact that most Doctor Who seasons were 13 episodes.
But they're 13 with if you count the Christmas special, usually.
No, it's 13
No,
plus.
they're usually 13 or more per season. Then the
Real.
specials.
It's 13 plus a Christmas. Yes, I'm aware of this.
Yeah, I'm aware of this, Bill. Where have you been?
It would have been the same this year, except for the fact that the first episode was a double length episode,
Yes.
so it was counted as 2 episodes as far as production budget.
Which also helped them get off light because they didn't need to throw in that much extra budget for that second half, to be
Yeah.
honest. It helped them save
Um,
some scratch.
so it
Yeah.
might not be all of New Who, or it might actually be Classic Who. The thing is, there was only 150 some episodes. No, it cannot be all of Classic Who. Or it
No,
could
it
not be
definitely cannot be all of
because
Classic
there is not 108 episodes currently available of Classic Who, I think.
Well,
No,
I
no,
think
there's
I think
100
you're
there's 104
confusing
there's
episodes for story.
152 serials.
Yeah.
152 serials. It depends on if they're counting episodes or episodes as serials, and it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
again, assumptions until we actually see something, so we're just going to keep running the circle here.
yeah, let's move on at this point because
Which I think
we
includes
don't
our
really have any
actual
more data.
Doctor Who
We don't have
news.
enough data to keep going on with this.
We do have one piece of non-Doctor Who news that was worth mentioning, and that is essentially that the Star Wars Episode 7 trailer will be airing in select theaters beginning this weekend and in iTunes trailers on Friday.
I'll have to look at it on iTunes because I'm not going clear to Brookfield 16 in Milwaukee to see it.
No,
to see
but
Yeah.
my assumption even before they announced the iTunes was that it would be on YouTube no later than Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably
Well,
no
you
later
know,
on Friday
and
actually itself,
if
too.
we were having to go to a theater to see it, we'd be better off than Bill because Connecticut's not even on the list.
But that's well,
Burn.
I didn't even check because when I saw that AMC was carrying it as a like I saw a different article than this initially, and from the
Mm-hmm.
way they worded it, I was kind of under the impression that AMC was going to be playing it at all their theaters. So yeah,
Not yet.
Connecticut
No.
is off the list.
Yeah.
No, it's
It's
only
there's
selected
one in
Um,
places. There's
Arizona.
literally one
yeah, and I
theater in
would.
all of Wisconsin that's getting it.
It looks like, assuming when they say New York that they mean Manhattan, I would. I'm not going that far to watch any kind of movie or
Lincoln
thriller.
Square and Union Square. So yeah, both of those would be in Manhattan. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Nashville, Knoxville, Dallas, Houston, Austin, Salt Lake City, Seattle, Milwaukee, Kansas City, Minneapolis, Detroit, Boston, Chicago, Atlanta, Miami, Washington, D.C., Denver, Vancouver, Toronto, San Diego, San Jose, San Francisco, Irvine, Los Angeles, and Phoenix. So if you are in one of those cities that I just mentioned, you can up this list and find the theater that's in your area to actually go and see this trailer if you're so inclined.
Or
I
you can watch it
personally will
online
wait.
without traveling or spending money.
Yep. I personally will wait and watch the trailer there.
Yeah.
Um,
So moving on.
moving on.
Boing.
Moving
Colin
on, we
Baker.
have one piece of not quite news, and that is that Colin Baker recently did an interview with Doctor Who News, which I had a few things that I figured just worth taking a look at and discussing as we wish.
Yeah, it's Colin Baker was basically talking about various things, including Peter Capaldi and his work on the Five-ish Doctors. His mentioning of Peter Capaldi is interesting enough that I'm going to quote it. I've seen two or three stories, up to the one about who's under your bed. The scary story and children one, I've recorded all the others but haven't seen them yet. I think my doctor is very similar to Peter Capaldi's in many ways. Slightly grumpy, not tolerating fools gladly, something else going on in his mind which makes him angry, and all those kind of things. I like his spikiness, and other people have pointed out that he's similar to the Sixth Doctor, or maybe every Sixth Doctors are grumpy. If you recall, earlier in the season, I also compared Capaldi
You
to the
did,
Sixth.
yes.
Yes, I think we all kind of mentally did a little bit.
So
And
maybe I like this idea. Maybe the 18th Doctor will also be of this
Extremely
nature.
angry. The 18th Doctor just sitting there going, "Ah, bloody hell."
the other things he mentioned is, the Five-ish Doctors, mostly the fact that it was Peter Davidson's idea, um, which is not surprising.
Nope.
Mentioned he had great fun doing it, and that people
And
have
would
liked
do a
it.
sequel.
I'm sure they would all love to do the sequel when they have the time.
Weren't
Yeah.
they talking about a sequel a few months back? So I'm guessing they
Yes,
haven't
they
filmed
were.
They already were kind of, yes.
one.
So yeah, they're
I think the
so
major
that's
problem with that is that Sylvester's probably busy until the end of the year.
I don't know. Technically filming is
The
well,
Hobbit should be
technically
done by now.
the Hobbit should be coming out in on
Yes,
the
but I wouldn't be surprised if Peter Jackson has a few last minute scenes he wants to
He's in the
film for.
Hobbit 3 Part 2.
it's already if they had to make retakes, those should have already been in the can by now,
Uh,
Matt.
Randy, they did refilming after the movies were done on the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm not surprised if they'll do
Yes.
more shots for the DVD
You're saying
releases.
DVD only scenes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, for the extended, maybe.
Extended.
Yeah,
I'm
the
sure they're doing extended cut
DVD.
stuff by now if they're doing it
I
at
was gonna
all.
say because I don't care how good they are. If they're filming something now, it's not going to be in theaters.
Yeah.
No. I'm saying
No.
that the
Yeah.
extended cuts when things are officially done. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised if there's a couple more things that they want Radagast in for.
Possibly, but yeah, like Bill said, it's not going to make theaters by this point because
But I'm saying
it's
DVD
not.
releases because I guarantee you there's gonna be the big penultimate box set.
Yeah, the
So
I
the
will take all of your money
16
box
disc
set.
Peter
Yeah,
Jackson edition.
They'll weigh like a lead weight.
the I'll take all of your money from you, leaving you poor, but with my DVDs or Blu-rays.
Which is why I haven't been buying any of the Hobbit Blue DVDs yet up to this point, except for the first one, because
I
I'm like,
did,
I
but
know what you're playing, Peter Jackson.
One,
I'm
I
waiting
did
on
not
you.
buy the
one
second one
box set
because I
to
was
rule
not
them
fond of
all,
them.
one box set to buy
I'm
them,
waiting
one
on
box
you,
set to bring
Peter.
them all, and Into Darkness fine.
I know
By
your
the way-
stratagems, Peter. I've read your book.
Aaron and I will be going to see the third Hobbit movie on December 15th.
Oh, I'll be watching that as soon as possible as well.
Well, they're actually in the neighborhood. They're doing it's technically not released till the 17th, but they're doing a special all three movies
Ah.
at
That's right.
the theater
AMC is
here.
doing that too. I might look into that.
Yeah, so is Marcus.
Hmm.
We're going to the Marcus showing, and that's
S-
happening December 15th.
December
So
15th. Let me.
probably on our December 17th podcast, the time that we're about to go into, we
Oh, it's a
have to
Monday.
use it for the before we talk about the episode.
Will they
We'll
be doing it
probably
any
talk-
sooner than Monday?
What?
Will they be doing it any sooner than Monday? Because if they're doing it that Sunday, I would not mind to.
No, Monday's the earliest they could do it.
Smeg.
Mhm.
That sucks because I'm not gonna see it until the next weekend. There's no
We'll try
way.
not to
My
spoil it.
main ride will be busy working on Monday. Guarantee it.
We'll try not to spoiler it too much for you, Matt. But you've at least read the book, right?
5 times.
To be fair, if you're talking about the Hobbit movies, that means you've read both the Hobbit and the Silmarillion. I have read the Hobbit. The Silmarillion is actually in the next room over. I haven't read it yet.
Actually, that's right. I did get a copy of the Silmarillion not too long ago, didn't I? I think it's somewhere. Yeah, it's over there. It's
So,
underneath a Terry Brooks book.
I believe
Anyway.
that will conclude our news.
Other than
that-
sales
I
on
think
Monday, look
next
for
was,
them. Wave hands.
What's that?
Which one of us?
What was that, Bill? I can't hear you over
Oh.
Matt.
I was just going to say that I believe you had the next piece you wanted to. Bring
Yeah,
up.
I have a little bit of personal opinion article. Go fig that I want to talk about.
Oh,
actually
I
about
agree
the,
with you on this one, by the way.
about the
Wholeheartedly. For the most
not
part.
necessarily and particularly about the episode of which we're about to review, but of the antics of BBC Video in general, and how they have been treating the serials that they have been animating. When this episode was, or when this serial was found last year, we talked a little bit of this last week, but this one, of course, was missing one episode. Now, I understand their rush to get this out to the populace, but they put it up on things like iTunes and Amazon digital download, that kind of thing. I really hoped and suspected that before the DVD release, they would take the time and animate the missing episode of this.
And see, I
And-
saw the exact opposite in the news, and I was expecting disappointment.
Well, no, I was hoping. I didn't say expecting, did I, Matt? I was hoping that
I thought you did.
I was hoping that they would, take the common sense to do this. Why do I say that it would have been a common sense thing? Because there's only one missing episode.
Yes, and that would
And
be
that's-
too much effort
And
for
it's
them.
and it's a very iconic episode, not because of what it is, but because of what it.
Of who's
Leads into-
introduced, yes.
Yes.
But who it introduces and what it contains in it, yes.
Yes, it's, it should have been an episode that they would have thought, yes, we should animate this.
We should
We
get
should
a hold of our animation guys, push full front, get this thing done, and get it done as best you
Priority
can,
one.
as quickly as possible, and get it done now.
Yeah, priority one this one, even if we have to back burner some of the other stuff. But you see, that's the problem, is that's the way BBC Video should have been looking at their collection. The first thing
They
should
were
have done
actually
was
looking at whether or not it had Cybermen in it.
Yeah, that kind of seems to be the thing, is what has the big aliens, what might get the big thing. Really what they should be looking at, because Doctor Who fans are going to buy these things, whether it's Cybermen or fighting Snarks, the whatever, It doesn't matter. If there's a completed serial out on DVD, Doctor Who fans are going to buy it. What they should have looked at first is what serials do we have that are only missing one episode? Let's animate those single episodes, get those serials
Yeah.
out on full DVD, and then we'll take a look at what's missing 2 episodes.
Right.
And then
And then eventually
what's
they can
missing
get
is
around to what's missing missing 9 episodes, but that would be down the line.
well, yeah, there's about a point that you got to wonder if it's going to be cost effective to reanimate, like all 12 parts of Dalek Master Plan.
Oh, that would sell like hotcakes.
That's exactly. If you
It's
made a
fucking
big
Dalek
event out
Master
of it,
Plan.
if you packed it with special features, I don't know if the monk is still alive, but if they can get an interview with him, the actor obviously, not the character. I'm not that stupid. Um,
Hmm.
Things like that. Make an event out of it. It would probably make its money back and more.
I
But
don't know. That's the biggest problem that they had is the expense that it's being taken to animate these episodes. That seems to be the real thing that's been turning off BBV video or BBC video. Bleh, is how much it's costing to animate per episode.
But because of their laziness, and I saw that they were being lazy with it, even in their early articles that they weren't going to animate this, that I'm not going to buy this DVD. I will not buy the Web of Fear until either A, they find that missing episode, or B, they animate it. Because I tried to watch this particular serial numerous years ago with only the stills, and it bored me the fucking tears. And you know what? I had deja vu watching that.
Well,
All I'm looking at literally a still image of Jamie as I hear walking. It's just like, oh.
again, that's something to discuss during the actual review of this episode. But
But no,
I,
it's still is part of this though too because it's them being lazy. They should
it's
not be
them
this lazy.
it's them making a very bad decision on whether or not to animate this episode, and I think they should have. And that holds for any serial that's missing 1 to 2 episodes that are in their libraries. They would make the money back on those. Three or more, that would take some more cost-effective looking at, how much they've been making in sales per, for those serials versus how much the
yeah,
animations cost. But 1 or 2 should still be cost-effective, I
actually,
think.
here's what would be cost effective. Dalek's Master Plan. Animate each episode over the span of the next 12 season DVDs as special features, and then when all 12 are done, 13 years from now, release them all as one DVD
No, that's
with
not
special
cost-effective at all.
features.
That's too long of a plan.
Yeah, that's really
If they
way
want
too
it, they
long
want
for
all
them.
of it right away as soon as possible.
Yeah. And again, you're also looking at that as putting it into the current season. You're forgetting that BBC considers New Who and Classic Who two separate intellectual properties.
They've never done special features relating to Classic Who on any new Who release.
No,
Not on that scale. They'll
definitely not that
occasionally
scale.
show scenes from a Classic Who in like their extras.
Yeah,
Like when the Daleks first showed up, they showed bits
Right,
of the
right.
history of the Daleks, that kind of thing.
but
But
Yeah.
no,
not
they
something
would
full fledged like that. No.
no, they've never put they'd never have a classic where you're having a full classic episode as part of a season set. No, they've never done that.
I guarantee you they never will either.
Yeah, they consider, like I said, classic and New Who to be two separate intellectual properties, and it's handled by two separate departments. So, no, we won't be seeing that. Anyway, I've said my piece. That's what I think BBC Video should be doing if they are going to continue animating, and I think they really should because it is nice to see those episodes, um, at least where you know what's going on. Doctor Who is a very, at least in the classic days, Doctor Who's a very visual medium.
Mm-hmm. Very.
So there is a lot of starts, silent scenes, and reaction takes. Um,
Yeah.
and stuff. And without these, and watching them from telesnaps, it's sometimes very hard to comprehend what's going on because of that. With animation, you at least know what's going on, and therefore can figure out, what's, um, you can figure out the plot a lot easier.
Right.
Okay, I said my piece about that. So now we're going on to talking about the Web of Fear. Um,
Which is a much more literal title than I ever imagined prior to watching the episode.
I actually
yeah,
confused it with Planet of the Spiders.
yeah. She's like, "Oh, aren't we going to watch this the worst one of the worst episodes?" And I'm like, "No, no. Actually, I thought this one was rated pretty highly
Oh, it
by a lot of
is.
people." And the like 5 seconds after it started, she's like, "Oh." So I will go ahead and do the summary. I'm basically going to be paraphrasing this off of TARDIS Data Core
Okie
because
dokie.
because again, it's a 6 episode storyline. I did not want to sit there and watch it scene by scene and build a summary of it. All right, so we start the serial pretty much where the last serial left off, with Salamander just having been thrown out of the TARDIS doors while it's in flight, Jamie holding on for dear life, and everybody else basically holding near the console. Um, the Doctor manages to get one of Victoria to close the doors, leaving them safe in the TARDIS, which shortly thereafter lands. It lands in what looks to be some kind of tunnel. You can see a grate on the other hand, and Jamie wonders briefly if they're in a prison. No, they are in the Underground Railway of London. Where exactly and when they don't quite know yet. At the same time, we see a couple of people who we would recognize if we had seen the earlier serial, The Abominable Snowmen, one of which is an older Professor Travers, talking with a private collector, trying to buy back the Yeti he sold him 30 years ago. The man refuses. Travers claims to have recently reactivated one of the control spheres and has vanished. His daughter suspects that he's gone a little nuts and takes him away. But that night, when he closes up everything, the control sphere breaks through a window, reconnects into the Yeti, which changes into a big glowing eyed version of itself, and he's attacked and cowers in fear. Um, Meanwhile, the Doctor and them are strangely under. Let's see. Actually, no. I'm sorry. I got lost a bit. Um, they. I actually went ahead of myself there. The TARDIS did not immediately land. It was actually stuck in time and space with a bizarre web-like substance around it as this was going on. Meanwhile, underground, a Captain Knight who looked to be what, an SAS officer? Do you think something like that? Um,
I don't know.
Basically, the military forces in this episode, in this serial, did they basically look like British SAS? Do you think? Anyway, he's being interviewed about a fallen comrade, a Colonel Pemberton, by a man by the name of Harold Shorley. As the interview finishes, Professor Travers hurries in, who starts yelling at Captain Knight. He explains that his daughter asked for him to be brought in. After Captain Knight leaves, the professor begins yelling at Shorley when Shorley attempts to interview him about the scientific ascension and finding a solution to the problem. Travers states the whole of London might be completely wiped out. The Doctor rigs up a device to the console, which lessens the web, and the TARDIS lurches, and he manages to land the ship in the previous mentioned underground. At Covent Garden is where they discover they are. They begin exploring the tunnel. Eventually, they do find a way outside, or at least close to outside, where they find what looks to be a sleeping man, but instead he's dead, covered in web. A newsstand outside reads, "Londoners flee, menace spreads." They return back underground. Jamie jumps onto the train tracks, which the doctor panics about, but thankfully the trains are actually off, so there's no current on the tracks. They walk along the tracks for some time and note that the trains haven't been running for a while. They discover a power cable, but are hiding as 3 soldiers come in, who we will later discover to be Staff Sergeant Arnold, Corporal Blake, and Craftsman Weems, letting out more cable from a large spool. The doctors and the other decide to follow these soldiers at a distance, and the doctor himself takes off to look for where the cable leads. While they're following, Victoria walks into a cobweb and can't stop herself from screaming, and they are, of course, captured by the soldiers. The doctor has backtracked to Charing Cross platform, on which several crates of explosives are piled onto the platform connected to these cables. As he investigates this, he hears a too familiar bleeping sound and has to duck onto the tracks as Yetis come out from everywhere. The Yetis spray the explosives with basically some strange mist. Back at the base, Corporal Lane cannot raise communications with a truck from Holborn. And the daughter of Professor Travers enters with a repaired blast recorder, and Captain Knight gives her a hand. Charlie enters, complaining of Travers' obstructiveness and not letting him have his way. But he's basically placated and ushered out by Captain Knight. At the explosives, the doctor is still sitting tight as the second Yeti arrives on the platform. Both Yetis are now using guns to cover the explosives in web. Basically, at this point, they decide to detonate the explosives. And the web glows and flashes, which is the end of episode 1. In episode 2, we find Jamie and Victoria now imprisoned by the soldiers. Arnold reports that about the doctor, who was supposed to supposedly been at the platform and probably should have been dead, except, of course, when they get to the platform, they discover he's not, because the explosives never went off. Knight, Anne, and Charlie question Jamie and Victoria, trying to get more information of them and find out if they're bad guys, and eventually they are led to Professor Travers, who recognizes Jamie and Victoria. Well, actually, after a bit of time, they recognize Professor Travers first. Meanwhile, the doctor... I'm completely losing the plot on this one.
Okay, do you need me to hurry it along?
Yes, please hurry it along, Matt. I'm losing place on this one.
Okay, so they after talking with Travers, they start to figure out what's going on, and they start to trust the Jamie and Victoria a little bit more. And they go about making multiple search parties trying to find the doctor. They do eventually go to the explosives and find out that they did go off, but because of the weird protective webbing, it just kind of sizzled out instead, and didn't affect anything else nearby. They are unable to find the doctor and continue to look around for him.
Thank you. Keep going.
Trying to think, what else did they have happen? Jamie led out a second expedition, which were then quickly cornered at one point by other Yeti, but due to another signal going off, the Yeti left them be.
Victoria overhears Travers and his daughter talking about not trusting them, maybe that they were working for the other side, which Professor Travers, by the way, completely denies, but Victoria is concerned enough that she goes wandering off looking for Jamie and the doctor,
Yes.
which leaves all three of them out in the tunnels at that point.
Yes. I'm trying to remember how they met up again.
Um,
Because I remember she ran off on her own for a while. Oh,
Jamie runs into Evans, the driver of the truck in Holborn, um, and he starts looking, and they see basically the web starts to advance through the tunnels,
yeah, that's because
following
he
a
left
Yeti
the.
carrying a glass pyramid.
Yes, that's because he left the rest of the party to go head back to base. Meanwhile, I believe Victoria finally bumps into the doctor and Lethbridge Stewart, who was the
That's
first
yeah,
person to
pretty much
actually
the
find the doctor and was running off with him through the tunnels.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gets into a whole hodgepodge mess of people running
Yeah,
around
it, it,
doing
it it
things at this
does
point.
because there's a lot of action that goes on. Eventually, they all make their way back to base. The
Yes, they
problem
do.
is the tunnels are slowly being covered piece by piece by the web.
Which apparently the web is some sort of apparently.
Yep, there's a
Yeah.
lot of time that happens. Jamie and Evans are stuck out there for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the rest of them in base try to make two assaults to try to slow down and stop the web.
Both attempts are forwarded by the either the Yeti showing up or more of the fungus suddenly showing up in places where they need to get a hold of explosives.
Yep, unfortunately, that last one causes the staff sergeant to vanish, and Lethbridge Stewart's entire brigade, save Stewart himself, is wiped out.
Because they also went to the surface to try and accomplish something, and they ended up getting cornered by Yeti at almost every single turn.
Mm-hmm.
They come to realize that almost everyone was getting targeted by these small devices that someone else had activated,
Yeah, it
possibly
looks
to
like
help.
small Yeti figurines in a way.
Possibly to
Yeah.
help the great intelligence, because at this point the doctor and crew already know who's behind the Yeti,
They
and
have
but I don't think they say for sure who actually starts setting
no,
them
they, they
off.
they know at that point that there's a mole.
Yes, they do.
They know, but they're not sure who it is. They have suspicions. Prime suspect is the interviewer guy, Charlie, who
Which they do hint
wanders
at
off
quite a
and
bit.
vanishes.
And they do hint at him quite a bit. I think they do a couple of shots that look like it could have possibly been him by like a little
But
cuff or
pretty much at
something.
this point, everybody at the base is suspect, including the brigadier. Sorry about that.
Including the
Including
brigadier, the doctor, um, also the new guy that was
Evans.
a driver was also suspect at one point,
That's
more than a
Evans.
couple times. Evans, yes.
Yeah. Eventually, the doctor manages to repair another one of these spheres and reprograms it to accept his own voice. Meanwhile, at the same time, Victoria and who was the Professor Travers had both been captured by the Great Intelligence, who wants the Doctor to surrender himself within 20 minutes.
And upon surrendering himself, he will take the doctor as hostage and feed off of all of his memories, leaving the doctor's mind completely blank, apparently.
The Doctor
Um,
also manages to finish a device which will cancel out the signal to these control spheres, and manages to take control of a Yeti. He then, without letting anyone else knows, gives the controller to Jamie, letting him have control of the Yeti, which he's lost track of in all of this. And it all winds up in the main base of the Great Intelligence at Piccadilly Station, where the intelligence himself is revealed to be Staff Sergeant Arnold, or at least inhabiting his body.
yes.
The Doctor is going to go into this device, which is going to suck his memory, and Jamie activates the Yeti and sicks it on the other Yeti. Big melee ensues, and pretty much the pyramid is destroyed, the Yeti stop, and the link to the Great Intelligence is severed, leaving the Doctor upset because he had his own plan in mind to cross the wires of the device, which would let him drain the Great Intelligence instead.
Hmm.
However, this causes the foam and the mist to vanish and everything to start going back to normal. They threatened to have the doctor give interviews and everything, which helps the doctor hurry back to the TARDIS to get out of there, preferably before the trains start running again. I think that's enough of a summary. God, this is a long.
It's a very long and very twisted road through the middle section of this particular story. Yes.
Yes, it is, but it's not so much that it's confusing when you watch it because it's like the action never stops.
Yes, but when you try and sit down and actually communicate what on earth is going on, we got this thing going that way and that way, and this thing intertwining around over here.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help that it's at least parts of it are a game of Clue. You're supposed to be, watching everybody with this degree of suspicion, and you really can't summarize.
Yeah, it is, and it's one of those things that if somebody
quickly.
asked you what happened, it would have been you just had to have been there moment.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can describe it, but slowly. You can't do it in the format we need, really.
Yes.
Without someone who can summarize it really, really well.
Yeah, or having the machine man do the entire summary.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, unfortunately, I cannot talk that fast. I have tried.
That would get the
Should I
summary done
pre-record?
quickly.
Should I pre-record the next one?
I feel like that would be no better for the audience than what we're already doing because they would still not be able to keep up.
Maybe. But yeah, with this going on, maybe. Anyway, last week we tried a new little format for this, which turned out to become the good, the bad, favorite moment, least favorite moment. And I think that worked out pretty well, so we're going to try that again.
Because this is also a very long episode, and trying to figure out key points to talk about will take forever otherwise.
Yeah, there's only 3 of us, so if we wind up with time left over, I'm sure we... 4 of us, sorry. there's three faces on my Skype as opposed to 4. So we're a man down.
Tim did send us good, bad, and weird choices. So for those, I'll go ahead and just summarize his thoughts
when we get to them.
Group. Yeah.
Okay. So, Aaron.
Yeah?
What did you find in this overall that was good?
Does it have to be a moment, or can it be?
Could be a moment. Could be a certain thing.
No, this isn't favorite moment, least favorite moment. This is what did you find that was good?
Just overall, even if it's just a moment, or otherwise if it's like some sort of part of production that you found that was really good.
I like the atmosphere that they were able to create. I felt like it felt kind of claustrophobic where they were.
And being that they're mostly underground, that's very apt.
Yeah, well, I wonder if they actually did these on location.
I kind of wonder at that times too.
Or if they had the sets that were based off people taking photographs of the actual tunnels.
I would assume that maybe the tunnels would have actually been real, but that the like really small base rooms might have been sets. Is my thought on that.
It's possible.
That's very doable.
The Yeti were real, but the underground was a set.
Ooh. But yeah, I agree with Aaron on that it's that they had that big clustered air. This was almost a bottle episode in a way.
Kind of.
Because a lot of their sets were reusable.
Oh yes. They probably could have used the same.
Isn't part of the meaning of a bottle episode very limited amount of cast except for main characters?
Well, isn't this?
It also means very limited amount of set work.
Yes, it's usually a combination of both.
But that's why I said it's almost, not is.
Either way, they however they did tunnels, they did them very well. And they could have easily reused the same, like, quarter mile or less of tunnel and gotten the same effect.
I can see how if it was on, like, location, they couldn't have actually set off the bombs.
That is also true.
Anyway,
to some degree.
Matt, what did you find good overall?
With the exception of 1 or 2 scenes, which I'm sure both me and Bill will bring up, I found the Yeti to be extremely well done in this episode.
Okay.
In this particular story. I mean, we have them lurking through tunnels. We have them actually outside And also not only just outside on the streets, but outside with explosions and firefights going on.
Now, I think the Yeti, as was mentioned, was a bit of a redesign off the Yeti that we saw in the Abominable Snowman, or
Yes, it
I should
was.
They
say,
they they did mention that in the episode.
They did mention in
yeah,
the episode they are definitely slimmed down. I think the eyes are a little bit more noticeable, as well as the
yes,
paws
they
and
are.
claws.
The thing, I think one of the differences is that they actually put lamps in the eyes
Yes.
in this one,
Mhm.
and they were not lit, I believe, in the Abominable Snowman.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of made a difference because it gave them kind of an eerie look.
Yeah, it also
Yeah.
adds to the atmosphere because you got these creepy creatures that can't talk, giving you the glowing eye,
Mm-hmm.
which in of
Yeah.
itself is pretty effective, especially in dark places.
Yeah, it was very
Oh,
nice
okay, yeah. Here,
considering that
I'm seeing a picture now of the first Yeti, and yeah, they slimmed them way the heck down. The eyes are definitely more pronounced, and I think the claws are a little bit better done too.
Since we're talking about the Yeti, I'm going to go ahead into Tim's thoughts because they were on the Yeti. He
Ah.
mentions that they were brilliantly designed, built, and photographed, and that while he has trouble picturing kids in the 60s and 70s hiding behind the sofa from Daleks, he could easily see them hiding from the Yeti.
Oh yeah.
Every time they were on screen, it reminded him of the creepiest moments of the Jim Henson Studios, and anything that reminds him of Henson is a plus.
Mm-hmm. By the
okay.
way, I sent a link there that should have an image of both versions of the Yeti.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
The
look at
first
that
one
change.
looks kind of cute and cuddly, actually.
Kind of.
I want to run up
Um,
to it, give it a hug.
Yeah, there.
The first one's
What?
Grimace.
Yeah, the first one's the
Yeah, it is kind of grimacy, and yeah, you notice that they're very hippie. And I
Yeah.
don't mean in the '60s sense. I mean in
Very wide
they were
hips.
they were very
large
big.
belly.
They were very
Childbearing
pear-shaped.
hips.
Yeah, very pear
Very
shaped.
pear-shaped. And the ones in this one were more properly proportioned.
They're more slimmed down.
Um,
They also had like scaly bellies by the look of them too, which also helped
but
define them a little bit better.
yeah, considering the fact that my only real experience with the Yeti prior to this was the Five Doctors, the brief scene
Yeah, we didn't
that
get
had the
really a
Yeti.
good look at it.
It was nice to see and do a comparison to what the sound effects, because they used the same sound effects in that.
Yes, yes, they did, which was very nice of them.
Okay. So, Bill, what did you find good?
I really like, and granted, this isn't like something that was oh my god spectacular, but it was very fitting with the mood and also with the entertainment, which was the stop motion work, the TARDIS in space, the webbing, all of that just appealed to me. It just felt like it didn't feel like oh my god the best effects that the '60s could come up with, but it felt like it really fit what they were going for. Like it really drew me into the episode.
Okay.
I mean, we talked a bit about the atmosphere as well. Just the general with the people was done well. Although I've got to say the whole, I do think that criticisms can come later, but the group with the people were fairly done well.
Okay.
That
Yep.
was as pretty.
Okay, so what I liked about this was the lighting.
The lighting definitely helped with the mood. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the light. There were a lot of scenes where it was like the top half was in shadow, which was absolutely perfect,
Oh,
and
go on.
it really helped. It really helped provide the claustrophobic feel that Aaron needed. Um, and it really helped set the pace, I think, for some of the scenes.
Oh, when you're done, I have something else I liked that wasn't a specific scene that I want to bring up.
Well, we'll also bring up the lighting really quick. One of the more popular pictures I constantly see, but I can't seem to get a high quality one right now, is that there's this really popular image of two Yeti in tunnel. One of them is actually in the light, and one of them is actually far enough back that you just see a silhouette of it with glowing eyes, which is a pretty nicely done shot.
That's the lighting helped with the glowing eyes. Yeah,
Mhm.
really.
It just makes the
Yeah.
Yeti pop no matter what kind of lighting is on them.
All right, so go ahead, Bill.
Okay, the other thing that I liked was how you can tell through the entire episode that the Doctor's wheels are turning, that he's got some sort of plan going on, all the way from not telling the Brigadier about how he could control that one specific Yeti, to all this other thing he's going. He's clearly, playing the long game and keeping his options open. With this whole situation going on,
Yeah,
and that was enjoyable to watch.
This was definitely not an episode where we see Troughton play the clown.
Oh no, definitely not. This
No.
is one of the few episodes where he definitely does not hide the fact that he's a very smart man and he's going to use everything he's got going for him.
Mm-hmm. So it's because most of the surviving Troughton episodes, he's kind of playing a bit of a fool. So it was really nice to see him sit down. I mean, the only other one I can think of where he doesn't is Tomb.
I would argue that
he starts that way, but the second he sees the cyber design on the wall, he's like, "Oh shit."
I would argue that maybe the first episode or episode and a half he plays the fool in the invasion, but he very quickly heel turns on that as soon as he starts finding out that there's something really big is going down. Especially when he starts working with Brigadier, then he totally lets go of the I'm a bumbling idiot motif and goes full on I'm a genius.
Well, I mean, even in the serial prior to this one we talked about last week, Enemy of the World, when he played the clown, it was largely so the audience knew which Troughton they were looking at. Whereas if you paid attention to what he was doing and his motives, he was not being clownish at all.
Oh no, definitely not. He was definitely playing it smart too.
That's actually, kind of how the second Doctor was supposed to work.
Right.
Was he played the clown while subtly, gathering information or piecing together a plan to stop the bad guy.
Or figuring out what all was actually going on because he knows something's not quite right here.
Yeah, it was all a front and he knew it. And that's the big difference, by the way, between the second Doctor and the 11th Doctor.
Whereas the 11th Doctor is almost always just the clown, period.
Yes. Even when things are serious, he's still being the childish clown.
He's just a childish clown with the keys to the MacGuffin.
Yeah, and that's kind of what bothered me about the 11th Doctor. And by the way, this is how they were originally thinking the 7th Doctor was going to be, was the fool on the front with the mind, but, they just kind of dropped the fool after the first season.
And they just went with the chess master genius, and it worked out far better for them.
Mm-hmm. Not everyone can pull this off, but Troughton very much could.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also times where he knew that it wasn't worthwhile to play the clown, that it just needed to be
straight up, and this was definitely one of them.
Yes. Okay. So what didn't you like, Aaron?
I think... Let me try to think here. I think I like...
What didn't work, in your opinion?
She's thinking
I'm
long and hard on it.
I'm trying to think of stuff that other people probably aren't going to say.
Well, look at it this way. You're first, so you get to say it before any of the rest of us.
Right?
So if you can call kudos, you got a chance to call kudos.
Charlie, I didn't like him as a character, but I don't think you're supposed
the interviewer?
to. Yeah, I don't think
The
you're
slimy
supposed
interviewer,
to like
yeah.
him though.
Well,
No,
yeah, you kind of meant.
He's another red herring
Mm-hmm.
that they throw at you. They throw a lot of red herrings at you, and like with Evans, he tries to reinforce the Brigade. Well, Lethbridge Stewart. They try to reinforce him as one. So
it was basically, Bill called it. It was basically a clue mystery. And basically everybody that was down there in the bunker is your rogues gallery. You don't know about the Brigadier because he apparently came out of nowhere and seemed to have all the right answers at first. So he was suspect for being able to survive from the auto crash and managed to get all the way there. You have Evans, who also managed to survive the auto crash and doesn't seem to be the greatest guy. You have Chorley, who is generally dislikable and always acting suspicious.
Mhm.
You have the
He was the Rita Skeeter of the
Mhm.
second Doctor era.
He was. Then you had the professor himself, who was acting a little off. You have his daughter.
Who at first you kind of hint that maybe there's something a little odd about her, but then we just kind of ignore that by the time the second
Well, I
or
mean,
third episode come around.
even the fact that she keeps doubting the main characters is,
Yeah.
that's something you'll see mystery characters do, is they'll throw suspicion onto the person you know is innocent
Hmm.
to try and
Yeah,
draw it away from
I was
themselves.
still suspicious of her later on, and apparently the doctor was too. That's why he gave that device to Jamie and didn't tell her.
Mhm.
Was just in case she tries to double cross him.
Mhm.
So there, she was still in question even up to the final episode. But yeah, it was pretty much, let's give you this list of characters, and all of them could be working for the Great Intelligence. Okay, that one's died. Okay, he wasn't the one then.
Oops.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty much how it was happening. Did you have anything else you didn't like, Aaron, or do I move on to Matt?
Just the red
Uh.
herring. The really bad red
Eh.
herring.
Move on to Matt. Yeah.
Matt,
Oh, I know what Bill's gonna bring up, and we can both of us can probably talk about that for a little bit too.
Well, that was probably going to,
that was going to
possibly
be your
going to be a
base.
worst moment thing for me, but if it's
Okay.
what I'm thinking about.
But anything in particular that didn't work for me. Pondering for a moment here. Um, anything I didn't particularly really like. And maybe this is just because of the one particular episode that actually isn't there anymore, but the
Mhm.
fact that they relied a little too heavily on wandering around. Because that, while something is happening, it's not anything majorly important, and they keep coming back to people just walking around.
Mhm.
If this was to say be a feature-length film, people would be yelling at the screen to get on with it. So I think they padded it out a little too much, and they could have probably cut an entire episode out of this if they would have
That
edited it a
that
little
part,
bit better, just a little
honestly,
bit.
I think that describes the entire black and white era of Doctor Who. And remember that at this point, a lot of it was, padding was often a goal. They would turn in a 4 or 5 episode script and be like, "Good, now make it 6 episodes."
Well,
Yeah.
there's that, but also you have to realize that even at the best height of a really good episode, it's going to end up being nitpicks for finding something bad.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's my big nitpick for this one. I
Okay.
definitely could feel the padding at times.
Okay.
It got a little
All
too
right, so
evident.
I'll go into Tim's comments here. He mentioned his bad was that he felt the character of Driver Evans was completely superfluous and served no purpose other than to give our heroes another problem to worry about. That's kind of a mixture of some of the stuff Aaron talked about and
Just a
the
little bit.
padding that Matt talked about.
Mm-hmm.
He is just another character essentially padding out the story and pointing you in more directions.
Although I would also argue that in the last act, he kind of comes off as comic relief.
True. I think the fact that he actually has a regional accent, which is sometimes rare in Doctor Who, is part of that.
Yes, probably.
At least in that era of Doctor Who.
In that era, Doctor
Yeah,
Who,
yeah,
yes.
that's what I mean. Yeah.
I mean, in more modern productions, you see regional accents all the time.
No,
Mhm.
no, yeah,
Back in those days, a lot of it was just received pronunciation.
right. Now, me
Occasionally a
personally,
Liverpool.
now Matt mentioned nitpicks, and I'm going to have to say, to me, the biggest problem with this episode is hindsight. And that's largely because this is an episode where it's been talked about. We've looked at what it's trying to do a lot. And there are so many things in this episode where it's not done poorly, but because, we could do them so much better nowadays. And this episode's been talked about, and it ends up being hyped to something that it can't and shouldn't be expected to live up to. For example, the Brigadier as a red herring completely falls flat for me.
Well, it does for any fan of the franchise in the long run.
No,
That's
yeah,
just
I mean,
facts.
I'm trying to ignore everything from the invasion onward. I'm looking at him as a one-time character as he's intended to be, and of course, I call him the Brigadier, so it doesn't really work. But and that might be a part of it too, just because it's his performance is so spot on that it's hard to separate him from what he would do later. But
Yeah, he was. I
was
actually
Brigadier
that
from
to
word
Aaron.
go.
he was the one character in the supporting cast that I was rooting for because he seemed to have a clue and could take things like the TARDIS at, okay, maybe it's there. How does it impact our plans? Rather than being your whiny one-time character that no one cares about.
Yeah, you watch this episode. I mentioned it to Aaron. I was like, "Wow, you can actually see why they decided to bring back the Brigadier later
Right.
When they had the chance to, yes.
Yeah, I mean, if I were watching this episode for the first time, I would be like, wow, I hope that guy comes back.
I actually
And he
kind of
does.
fell for for it temporarily. The whole red herring portion of him. I was trying to imagine him as a bad guy, essentially.
Right.
It's just like, well, if I was seeing this for the first time and I'd never heard of this character, I guess I would probably fall for him as the red herring because he's so charismatic.
Yeah, for the first episode or two that he's in, maybe, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my complaint rings completely falls from your point of view, which is fair.
But she can distance herself, whereas most of
Yeah.
us have been around the
Well,
Brigadier a lot more, and we can't.
I was doing the same thing, working to distance myself, whereas all I could see him as was, the character I want to see come back because he actually has a head about him, rather than being like, time travel, that's impossible, like most Doctor Who supporting casts would be.
Yeah.
It's obvious why the Doctor took a shine to that particular character.
Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's really, really the fact that so many parts of this episode could have, would be done better now is really the biggest complaint I can muster. It's not that any one thing about it is bad. It's just that they,
There's a small, tiny combination of things that we could do slightly better now than they could have been able to do back then.
Yeah, 40 plus years later, every aspect of the mystery would have been written more effectively, things like that. And that's really the biggest complaint that I can bring to bear against the story.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's our bad.
What I don't like about the episode was a case of did not 2 + 2 = 5.
That doesn't add up quite right in your head, huh?
No, this is literally the writer not doing math right. As you know, this is a sequel episode to the Abominable Snowmen, which takes place in 1938. The original writer was intending to make this a modern-day piece for the time, which was 1968.
Was it intended to be?
It was intended to be. However, he wrote the maths wrong.
And he made it 1978 instead.
Instead, yes.
Oh.
Which is, created the unit paradox.
Which is interesting because Pyramids of Mars is usually cited as the main thing for the unit paradox, although I believe the invasion is set a few years before 1978. I think it's set in the mid 70s.
Well, no, the Pyramids of Mars is the paradox because without it, you can assume that.
No. What I mean is Pyramids of Mars is she says I come from 1980.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she makes the kind of setup there, but no, it's coming back here where this is now listed as being 1978. Um, and this is the early part of of what went wrong. Is yes, it was intended to be 1968, which would have made it a 30-year difference, but the the person that wrote it went 6 - 3 = 4,
Yeah, I
and
kind of thought that was intentional. I thought they were making this, what unit would be would be sometimes and later envisioned as is, the 3 minutes in the future story of just a few years.
it was never supposed to be a few years. It literally was supposed to be 20 minutes in the future, kind of thing. Um,
Like the extremely plausible near future right now.
yeah, because of course, when British tends to do 10 years in the future, they tend to involve things like flying cars and moon bases. Look at the sci-fi series UFO, which was made in 1970, taking place in the far-off future of 1980,
Again,
and having all of the abovery.
Well,
it's like I've been there.
well,
So
dude,
this was intended to be the
10th
what,
planet.
third modern day story? Then is that right?
Yes, but because of that snafu, it didn't happen. And
Right. And I'm
why
not
this
counting
bothers
Unearthly
me.
Child as modern day, of course, because it's not where the story is set.
Which three are you counting as modern day?
Uh, the uh, the War Machines,
Okay, that was the other one I was thinking of.
the one
There
that
might,
Ben and Polly left the TARDIS in, and then this.
and technically, an unearthly child started that way too.
Yeah, but the plot was somewhere else.
I argue that an unearthly child is an unearthly child, and the rest of it's 10,000 BC.
Yeah.
You can go with that, but I still say the Unearthly Child is not a story; it's a setup.
There
It's
might
not,
be,
It's a
there
complete
might,
episode in of itself.
the Earth isn't being invaded by Susans, and Ian and Barbara have to stop them.
but if they had gone with that, the entire unit era would have been modern day episodes. Um,
Hmm.
but and if that had been the case, this would have been the first crisis, earth-shattering crisis that got dealt with that we see, written as being too much happening in the Russell T Davies era. But because it happened 20 minutes in the future, people just nod and wander off. Makes you wonder that if Russell T Davies, well, actually, technically, Russell T Davies wrote most of his episodes a year in the future.
Which is I mean it's ironic looking at it that way because the previous episode, Enemy of the World, was set sometime before, not before 2018. It's not given a year, but we do have a helicopter that seal expires in 2018. So from our point of view, it's either 2 minutes in the future or a modern day story. From their point of view, it was a little different. So they were going from 50 years in the future to 10 years in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, can I mention also another really good thing to bring up? They actually kept some makeup continuity between this story and the previous one.
Well, they were probably aired back to back.
Well, here's the
Filmed
thing:
back to back.
the entire run of the Web of Fear, the Doctor has a scratch on his cheek still the entire time.
Yes.
I
Yes.
actually think that wasn't makeup.
Hmm.
I think actually Troughton scratched his cheek.
But it was very prominent in some shots in Enemy of the World and did continue from here. So that is.
Yes.
It was from it didn't show up until after the end of the last episode of Enemy of the World.
Yeah, it showed up. It showed up when they blew up the
When they blew up the facility,
research
yes.
station.
And he was supposedly slightly injured all around to begin with, so it was very apt if he did actually scratch himself. But I'm almost certain it's makeup, and they actually managed to keep it for the entirety of this story as well.
Well, that's good.
So there's actually a little bit of continuity, remembering exactly right where we left off already.
Okay, so let's go on to favorite moments. Aaron.
Favorite moments.
Yes. Of everything, of all 6 episodes, what was your favorite moment? your favorite scene, the thing that made you go yes.
When we
I
see
might have
them,
to cheat
when
on this one, but
it's when they actually go topside, I think. When they go topside and they actually see what do you call it? They actually see the invasion, the Yetis coming at them towards from all different directions. That one was actually
oh
pretty
yeah,
cool,
that's
and
a good
then
scene. I
the
was
ensuing chase scenes throughout the city, that was actually pretty neat because it felt like an abandoned city,
yeah.
and I was really kind of wondering where all those people went.
Well,
Were they really? Hmm?
over the years, Doctor Who has been very good at doing abandoned London.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
think of
Mm-hmm.
Dalek Invasion of Earth.
Yeah, they managed to barely pull that off, and they would do it again for the invasion.
Hmm. They're quite good at it. But yeah, it's a good example of it. Matt.
Aaron mentioned in particular the surface part where they're doing the chase through the streets. My favorite scene would have been right after that when they actually try to stand their ground and have a full-on arms fight with the Yeti. And then we also see the Yeti actually fight back with their new weapons, with the web guns and stuff.
Hmm.
Mm.
That was one that was a section that really got nothing but my pure attention.
All right, Bill.
I'm actually going to choose two, and one is going to be taking the story on its own merits, and one is going to be as a fan 40 some odd years in the future. The second of those, obviously, the first time Nicholas Courtney's voice made its way into the story. I can't say his face because it was still
Teleplay.
images and no actual video, but I definitely perked up when I heard the Brigadier had finally showed up. Well, the Colonel had finally showed up.
Aaron had
Uh,
taken that moment to go into the bathroom.
Uh,
Wah wah wah.
taking the episode on its own merits, I would have to say the scene when Anne and the Doctor are when the well, generally the sequence where they're experiencing on the control sphere, but especially when they succeed, when how when the Doctor is giddy at as a scientist succeeding in doing this, and I enjoyed that scene.
Okay. My favorite scene, I think, is actually from episode 2. It's where Professor Travers realizes who Jamie and Victoria are.
Ah,
Mm-hmm.
That sheer, word mirth, because they apparently had mentioned in the Abominable Snowman that that they had a time machine, but Travers didn't buy it. And then, at first he doesn't recognize them, but when they mention his name and say who they are, it pretty much clicks, and he's absolutely gobsmacked.
yes,
Oh yeah.
He
he's
can barely
giddy.
talk straight. Yeah, he's giddy, but at the same time, he's, you know,
You haven't
he
you haven't
almost starts
aged
fanboying.
30
Yeah,
years. You haven't aged.
and it's very rare we get to see that in Doctor Who.
Especially classic Who.
Because, well, even in New Who, because the Doctor usually deals with something and then he moves on. And in
Yeah.
New Who, if they come back to it, it's, real time for the airing. It's only a few months later, so you don't see that. But this is a rare case of him going someplace and coming back to it, what would have been about a year later filming time,
I
but they
actually
had
think you get a little bit more of that in Torchwood because Captain Jack has a few moments like that, but he usually does his best to downplay it so as not to draw attention to himself.
hmm But you don't see it this often in Doctor Who proper. Because the Doctor rarely makes repeat visits to things like this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
To
it
be
was
fair, this one wasn't his choice either.
no. But so it was very rare to see actually see the effects of time travel on a person. And I
Yeah.
thought that was absolutely beautiful. Okay. So here we go for worst scene. Aaron, what did you find in here that was particularly eye rolling?
Mm,
What made you decide to go to the kitchen and have a cheese sandwich?
hmm. Eye rolling. There was one or two things, at least, and this was actually a pretty good episode, in my opinion. But one of the more annoying aspects that kind of took me out was, and I know this is his trademark thing, is Patrick Troughton whipping out his recorder and playing it.
Yes, he did.
I know that's something that he does. I know and he does it quite often.
At the
But
same
it
time,
just felt
not much
kind of,
footage of him playing that recorder is actually still around.
Funny
yeah.
enough.
It just, there was something strange that just felt out of place. I mean, I guess it could be seen as making the thing all the more eerie, but yeah, I guess that's just my opinion. It was just kind of took me out instead of,
Okay.
sucking me back in.
All right, Matt.
Oh, the one part that really took me out.
What made you go, oh, come on?
If Matt takes mine, I'm going to punch him through the screen because he knows
Because
what
I know, Bills.
Now,
Because he
there's no
pointed it out.
punching. There's no punching on the podcast. We go for kicking in the dick.
What if there's more than one?
That you choose the worst of them.
Worst of it all. Actually, you know what? There was actually one scene that did take me out of it for a moment. I wouldn't say it was exactly bad, but I saw right through it and I went, "Oh, come on," and start giggling. The sequence where they open up the door and it's bubble wrap as the supposed fungus behind the
Neither the
door.
first nor the last time that bubble wrap will be used for an effect in Doctor Who.
No.
No, it won't be
In
the
fact,
first nor the last,
it was
but
pretty much standard fare for them to use
but
bubble
it
wrap.
was very obvious, huge bubble wrap, and I'm just looking at it going. when I saw it, because I could see the giant bubbles in it. It was so obvious, it was painful. I couldn't help but to giggle at that moment, and here's Nicholas Courtney trying to take it as gobsmackingly serious as possible and trying to cram a door shut. Oh, but yeah, it took me out for a moment.
All right, Bill.
Mine is along the same lines, but it was so much easier to fix.
Yes.
And that is when the Doctor is commanding the Yeti. And it basically just turns to show the audience the zipper on the back of the costume.
Oh,
and
I
there's
thought.
no other reason for it to turn that direction. And there's no reason the director couldn't have said, you know what, you got a big ass zipper on the back. Why don't you turn to the right instead of the left?
Oh, I thought you were talking about a different scene, but with the same problem.
I only saw it once.
When they're in the parts shop getting the computer chips and stuff. When the Yeti that goes to kill the one soldier before the both of them get called away and leave the Doctor there to finally finish picking up parts, you can very clearly see the seam for the zipper on its back. Very clearly, from head to butt.
Okay. Tim didn't mention a scene, but this feels like the best place to mention what he had mentioned here. And he had mentioned that watching an entire episode in still pictures and audio was weird. He does mention he has a copy of Fritz Lang's Metropolis, I guess from before it was remastered, that fills in missing scenes with paragraphs of text describing the action. But
Some of the
Doctor
earlier
Who
ones,
doesn't
yeah,
have-
they would do that before they got more finished.
Yeah, I was actually going to take the few minutes that we'd have after this to actually talk about the telesnapped episode.
Okay.
And deal with that because we'll have about 10 minutes. Let's see. What made me roll my eyes? I think it was the fact. Yeah, I think it was near the end where the prisoners under guard kept sneaking sideways to talk to random people in the corridor, and the bad guys didn't realize it, just kind of seemed me to be a little contrived. I don't know.
Well,
It was
we've
like
established that the great intelligence isn't best of best.
also the fact
No,
that
he
the great intelligence was neither voiced by Ian McKellen or Richard E. Grant, but that's more of a modern interpretation.
What
Anyway,
was Ian
so
McKellen doing around this time?
I don't know.
Probably theater.
He was
Probably
just
Hammer
breaking
films.
he was probably just breaking into theater.
Yeah. Anyway,
I think 10 years down the line is when Hammer starts coming into its own.
no, this was 68.
Oh, so
Hammer,
about 3 to 4 years.
no, Hammer started in 58.
Yeah, but
Hammer had a lot of stuff
they
in the
didn't
50s.
get really popular with any Dracula or Frankenstein stuff until they started doing that in the 70s.
Yeah, I
I
know,
thought
but the
most
first
of their
Dracula.
remakes were in the 50s, but they did have
No,
they
the
did have
first, the
sequels
first, the
and
first,
reboots.
the first Dracula was in 58.
Really?
Because I remember looking this up for GeekCon one year.
That was 58?
Yes.
They did reboot all of their remake franchises at one point.
That's
so
true.
that
They did reboot those franchises again.
Yeah.
in the
Anyway, we're
late
tangenting.
70s, but that's
Yeah,
another side. Yes.
but before we go into the Telesnap thing, I do have one thing that I was trying to find a place to mention, but it didn't really feel right, and that is just Anne Travers, Professor Travers' daughter. I'm thinking, yeah, daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get I couldn't shake the feeling throughout this entire episode that a later Doctor would have made her a companion.
Maybe.
Maybe.
She just had that vibe to me. Like, she felt like a companion character. Like, even the fact that she was working with the Doctor, on his experiments throughout the entire time, felt like if he wasn't already traveling around with two people, that she would have made the next companion.
Which is interesting because the next serial is Fury from the Deep, which is where Victoria goes away.
True.
But yeah, obviously they weren't thinking of it at the time. All right. So, as we have mentioned, episode 3 of this serial was done completely in telesnaps, as that episode is still lost to the mists of time, as it were. And I wanted our opinions on what we saw. Aaron and I saw the telesnapped version from the DVD. I'm not sure what version Matt saw.
As far as I'm aware, it's also from the DVD because I had the rest of it in normal full motion as well.
Yeah, I would say mine was the same.
Okay, so what did you think?
Well, actually, let me see. It had, as far as I could tell, only one time did it resort to text to tell you what was going on.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
even
the same
recall
version
that.
I saw.
Oh, actually, no. No, I do recall that they added a little bit of subtext here and there.
I only
at one
saw
point
it
or
once.
two. I remember for sure seeing it once, but again, I also paged away because there's nothing to watch, and what's the point of watching silence?
Yeah, that's the thing. In episodes like this, my attention tends to wander a little bit more than it already normally does.
Yeah.
So, Aaron, what did you think of the telesnap version?
I would say I felt it was fairly engaging. Of course, I've never I've never sat down and actually seen a telesnapped version of Doctor Who before. All I've seen is VHS of the Seeds of Death, I believe.
Well, get
And
used
that
to
was,
it because we're talking about doing some episodes that are telesnapped upcoming next year. So,
Oh God.
Okay.
and I think those are ones that are like completely lost.
Yeah, some of them are.
So we'll be watching the entire thing in telesnaps. I'm not sure I'll be able to do it, but we'll see.
We'll
But
see.
so your thought was overall?
Overall, the entire episode, I really liked it. It had a good atmosphere. The monsters were creepy. I didn't.
Well,
really
I
hate-
Well, we're talking about the Telesnap episode itself.
we're only
Aaron.
talking about episode 3. Yeah, overall,
the
your thought on
episode.
episode 3. Yeah.
It moved fairly quickly for me. I didn't really lose my attention towards it. It was just there.
Okay.
It came and went fairly quickly for me.
Okay. Matt?
I have the exact opposite knee-jerk reaction to this particular episode. As a person who has seen other Telesnap episodes, let me tell you, this was fucking bland and boring. I've seen non-professional telesnaps on YouTube that did a better job than this. So I was really gritting my teeth, and not even 5 to 10 minutes in, I was looking around like, can I just play some Minecraft while listening to this rubbish? Because, and again, it epitomated into the facepalm worthy moment of just seeing a single still image of Jamie as he is supposedly walking through the tunnels alone for, I want to say, the better part of 30 or more seconds. I'm just like, oh, okay, I've about had enough of this.
You know,
I think he
that
was
was
only momentarily saved by the other guy showing up all of a sudden, and then a few months later being saved by the Brigadier showing up.
and that was my reaction to when we did Power of the Daleks way back when.
Well, when we did Tower of the Daleks, I managed to actually find a telesnap thing that actually was halfway animated. Like it was actual
Yeah,
telesnaps,
there are a few of
and
those
someone
that are.
did some post animation with the telesnaps.
That's the one I was looking for when we reviewed it, because that's how I watched Power of the Daleks the first time, and I couldn't find it when we did the podcast.
All right, so Bill, what did you think?
I'm kind of in between. I think it was neither great nor terrible. I mean, it did what it was supposed to, and you can tell that they weren't going to put in the manpower hours to animate what they had, which was a shame, or to do that much else with it. On the other hand, I've seen some First Doctor episodes like this, which relied so much on text that I couldn't watch them, because this type of episode, my attention span can barely deal with anyway. And if I need to be, reading the screen the entire, like, I'm fine reading subtitles, but reading the action of an episode is a little too much with some of these episodes. But this did not rely on me reading the screen the entire time. I could pretty much get the gist, even though I could tell that some of the context was lost by showing stills instead of the actual action. But it didn't, it was neither the best nor the worst example of a telesnap episode that I've seen.
Well, I actually have to go with Aaron on this. The fact that this telesnaps, unlike the power ones I said, actually held my attention for the duration of the episode. The fact that this one at least kept you on who was doing what was getting done, so you knew you were what. In some of the telesnap stuff I've seen before, basically had one, maybe two telesnaps for an entire scene. So it was just like, I have no idea what's going on. All I'm seeing is this still image. But, at this point, when somebody was talking, they'd cut to a close-up of that person's face. So I knew that when there was an action going on, they'd usually cut to a telesnap of what they were doing. So I at least was able to follow the plot, which was a lot better than the one I saw for Power of the Daleks. So I actually was able. I did not phase out my attention span while that episode was going on.
And again, I think you just saw a really bad version for Power of the Daleks because, again, the one I saw not only actually had animation, but it actually had a woman narrating, so they could cut down on the silent time.
That would kill me. That would kill me dead if somebody was narrating what was going on.
That's actually why I can't finish Marco Polo. Except that's actually how the episode was. That's
no, if you're narrating over dead air and cutting down the dead air by half or less, then by all means, pretty please do it with sugar on top.
See, I used to watch VHS tapes with that were narrated for the blind. Like, we would pick up Sherlock Holmes, and we were wondering why it was being narrated, and here it's a VHS tape that was designed for people who are watching it for blind. We picked it up from the library system. So, and this is the one with Jeremy Brett. So it would kind of remind me, telesnaps like that would probably remind me of those old VHSs we used to watch.
See,
okay.
And apparently Aaron wouldn't have much of a problem with it either.
I don't know. It would bother the hell out of me if it was talking over what was actually going on.
Yeah.
No, again, telesnaps, you can't really see it. You need the narration to tell you what's going on.
Yeah, I know,
Otherwise,
but
it's just dead air and a still image. What the hell's going on?
I'd rather see the text do narration by text
No,
than
I'd rather
replace
actually
what's
have
the
a spoken
authentic part.
narration. I am watching a video to watch, not to read it.
But regardless, it is time for our final thoughts.
Yes, it is.
So, we actually need to have a little tone that goes off at quarter two. You know, like the psychiatrist's office. Yeah. You know the tone, it means what it's well, occasionally I eventually I can bring my clock in here, have it go
Yeah,
up three quarters
there we
too.
go. We set up a timer. All right, the good, you have 10 minutes. The bad,
Yeah.
you have 10 minutes.
5 minutes.
Anyway, final thoughts. Aaron, what are your final thoughts on the episodes? You started it earlier, but go ahead and reiterate.
Yep, to reiterate, sorry about that earlier. To reiterate, I really enjoyed this episode. It had a great atmosphere. The monsters were fairly scary. It's everything kind of was all wrapped up and pretty tightly done. So, plenty of characters. I wasn't really bored. You know, I mean, everyone seemed to have for the most part, everyone had their own individual personality. They weren't just soldiers going off to get killed. You could identify people and their talents at least. Or memes. Alright,
Okay,
so
sir.
that's it.
All right, Matt.
Aside from the one bad episode which we just finished talking about, I have to say that I generally quite like this. I would almost consider it up there in quality to almost the likes of The Day the Earth Froze, which is why I decided to use its music for our opening this week. And to be honest, it quite fit to the point that it even confused Bill for a few moments. um,
Oh, that reminds me. Sorry, I'm going to aside on you here, Matt. Did you
okay.
notice that some of the music used during this episode was the same music that was used in Tomb of the Cybermen?
Now that you mention it, I think that would
The
strike a familiar
overland scene
chord,
with the
yes.
Yeti. It's the music they used is what's considered the cyber theme
I,
for the
I didn't
60s.
notice that, but I'm not surprised because
Mm-hmm.
it
That
fits.
da 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 da. You know, I was wondering if that was what made them think about doing the invasion.
Maybe. Maybe they got their own ideas out of that, yeah.
It was
Anyway,
foreshadowing.
But, yeah, anyway, very good lighting, very good mood. The update to the Yeti was very well done. And actually, come to think of it, at the very beginning of this story in the first episode, when the orb gets into the Yeti, you actually see the shape of the Yeti change, because that was apparently the old suit, and then they transferred over to the new suit just before the eyes lit up.
awesome.
So I have to say, overall, this is right up there with any of the 1950s classic sci-fi films. This is a darn good watch overall.
Okay, Bill.
I'd consider this to be a strong middle episode, meaning that it was an average episode with a bump in terms of that extra element of the atmosphere and such. There wasn't any of those outstanding moments to blow me away and be like, oh my god, this is great. But it was taking an average episode and making it better, essentially. By adding that atmosphere, that everything else, to just make it an altogether strong, enjoyable episode without needing to be a big showstopper.
Okay, yeah, I get what you mean, Bill. By average episode, this was, in essence, another of the Troughton era base under siege episodes that we've seen
More or
before.
less.
But the twist was that it was essentially supposed to be a modern day Earth. It was where you knew it was London. Um, but yeah, it was taken. It was obvious that they spent a little budget on this, judging by the new costumes and the development and everything. Seemed to be that much tighter. It seemed to be very tightly done, even for such a convoluted plot as it had. By the who's the traitor, but It was still very interesting. I don't think I really lost my attention more than once or twice. It could have been tighter near the end, I think, where they were padding it out. But as was mentioned earlier, that is a common situation in Doctor Who where they're either saying, oh, this is a 6-part episode, make it 5, or oh, this is a 4-part episode, make it 6, depending on the season. So that's my thought on it. We'll go to ratings, and we will start with Aaron. Or actually, wait. We will start with Tim.
Start with Tim,
Tim,
yes.
yep, Tim gave this episode a 4.5, and he says it could be 5 if he were able to see it complete and whole.
Maybe.
Okay. All right, now go ahead, Aaron.
I'm going to give it a 4. That was very good.
Okay, Matt?
I have to agree with Tim. The only thing it's missing is one episode, and they could have easily taken the time to make an animatic at the very least to make up for any of the downfalls that bloody still image gallery of an episode they had. Until that time, yeah, I'm going to give it a 4.5.
All right, Bill?
That close.
I'm leaning toward a 4. Like I mentioned, it's better than a 3 episode, but without that extra oomph to give it that 4.5 or 5. So I'm going to put it as a 4.
All right. Bill, do you remember what I rated last week's episode?
4.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to have to give this a 4.5 because I think this was actually tighter than last week's episode. It felt stronger, other than Patrick Troughton's acting, which was really what carried the rather convoluted plot of Enemy of the World. This one had further plot. Plus, you got to give it bonus props for premiering Brigadier Stewart.
And also
Or
probably
at
one of
this
the better
point,
Yeti
Colonel.
episodes.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't really put, like, if this wasn't intended to be the big, premiere of a new companion, so I'm trying not to give it that point because that was an accident.
It doesn't matter to me because
It planted that seed anyway.
it's not even that. It's the fact that it was obvious from this episode the reason why he became a recurring character. He came out on the bat strong and earned his place as a recurring character. And this is the episode that did it.
Yeah.
Like I said, it planted that seed.
So
There was that little element in there that just pushed
the
him
bonus
over.
bump.
And I would say that wouldn't even be just
that. Now that we're talking about that, I'm kind of picturing if Anne was had been in place of Liz.
But I would say that even regardless of that this is actually, you don't hear much about the Yeti anymore, and this is actually one of their best episodes, I think. And and would also fuel their fire to make another invasion story, which they eventually became made into a Cyberman one.
Well, mind you, if they used that same costume today, it'd be fairly ridiculous.
Oh, yes, but they could easily modernize that.
They'd really have to overhaul it.
They could easily modernize that again, but at the for the time that this was, and for how cheap they had to be, that thing was amazing.
So it looks like averages out to a 4.3, it looks like.
Yep.
Which is well above average. This was fairly competent and well done. If you can replace that one missing episode with something a little bit better, you could probably win us over. Or at least a couple of us over.
Which, let's see, looking at the rest of the season, it looks like the closest rating to that. This is slightly above the average that we gave Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead.
Okay.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's a 4.3. That puts it not as high as Day of the Doctor, which was a 4.6. And yeah, that looks close to Forest of the Light. Yeah, I would have to say that's about where it would fit on the
on the end gauge meter. Yeah, it sounds like it fell more or less in the right spot. A few more touches and it could have been absolutely perfect. Well, but with that, I believe it's time to end the episode tonight.
Okay.
Yep. Go ahead, Bill.
Rand. I was just going to give an ending spiel, so if you have anything to say, go ahead.
I was going to say that will conclude our coverage of the Second Doctor, the found episodes of the Second Doctor.
That came up in the last year and a half.
Yeah, thus ends Lost and Found. For now.
For now, yeah.
Lost and Found 2014.
Yeah, because there's going to be more.
Right.
Oh, there's guaranteed to be more eventually.
Hopefully.
One way or another.
I like to imagine that somebody is, in a pyramid right now searching for that last episode of Web of Fear.
Yeah, I believe.
Or they're searching the same place they found Samurai Cop in that mythical castle dungeon somewhere, and it's chained to the wall, and they're just like, what's this one?
Yep. From here, we'll be going on to covering our missing Christmas episodes leading up to the actual Christmas episode for this year on the 25th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and if you want to hear more of an Unearthly podcast, you can always listen to us, well, not always, but when we're streaming, you can listen to us stream live at twitch.tv/madmat2185. Our latest episodes are always on display at youtube.com/maninblackreviews, and you can follow us on social media at facebook.com/unearthlypodcast and twitter.com/unearthlypod. If you want to support what we do and maybe bring our content up to the next level, you can support us at patreon.com/unearthlypodcast, where you have opportunities such as having your name in the credits or having us review your favorite Doctor Who story. Oh, and don't forget to join us next week as we return to the 10th Doctor era with yet another future main characters premiere with Runaway Bride.
Ah, excellent. See you all next week.